Why Malaysia? Why should we focus on Malaysia?
Well, I'm Osman Hashim, Ambassador of Malaysia to the US. I've been here for 1 year now. My main task is to promote greater relations with the US with a huge focus on trade and investment, and also cooperation in other areas like culture, academic cooperations, and also a number of new issues like areas of science and technology. Since I've been posted here, I've spent a lot of time on promoting trade and investment here in the US, and of course Houston is an area which have drawn a lot of interest to us because Houston is the fourth largest city in the US,
Yes.
and also a lot of opportunity here in the oil and gas business, and there are also many other areas where Houston has its own niche, and we find that this is an area where we can work together to have more collaboration in trade and investment, and also economic cooperation with Malaysia.
Can you talk to me, how does the very large youth population, both educated and uneducated, how do they affect the Malaysian business communities generally, and more specifically in the oil and gas and IT space?
Well, the young people, the youth, are our assets. The government is giving a lot of attention, and we spend a lot of our budget on education for the young people. We spend about 22% of our annual budget on education. So the intention of the government is that the young people will have opportunities to good educations. And of course, there are also areas where some of them did not make it that well, but we are also providing them opportunities to go for trainings in trade, in skills, so that they will be able to work in some of the industries in Malaysia. And as you asked just now, in the oil and gas industry, where there are opportunities for young people to work there, but they must have the right knowledge and the right skills to work there. And so the industry is also giving a lot of attention in training young people to be skilled in those areas as well. So that would be important for the industry, also would create opportunities for the young people.
ASEAN is on the map. ASEAN is on the radar. We see Burma opening up with Aung San Suu Kyi being elected to parliament. President Barack Obama has traveled there twice to be a part of the Asian Summit and various other conferences. So why now? Why ASEAN? Why specifically Malaysia?
I think the bottom line is, in this current global environment, where again, Europe is going through a very difficult time. Even the U.S. economy remains challenged in a lot of ways. If you're looking for really where the growth in the world is, it is in the Asia-Pacific region. And within the Asia-Pacific region, ASEAN stands out. As a region, you're talking about expected growth over the next 3 to 5 years on average per year about 5% on average, with countries like Myanmar and Burma are going to be much higher than that.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's what really I think it will excite a lot of interest, a lot of international companies that are going to really say, if I'm really looking where the growth in the world is, I got to look at Southeast Asia. And then the Malaysia angle comes in because I think it's well-developed infrastructure, the ability, English speaking, the ability to have players who are in everything from technology to agriculture gives, I think, Malaysia a very broad set of foundations to really, I think, be a good platform to look at being in Malaysia to take advantage of opportunities in Indonesia, the big economy. Being in Malaysia, maybe to go to Myanmar, another big economy, those kind of things. So I think it's a nice sweet spot for Malaysia. Again, 28, 30 million people to be that regional platform.
Talk about being a regional platform. a lot of research and focus as the world gets flatter and the world gets more interconnected on IT. Specifically, research shows that Malaysia is stepping up to be a leader in cybersecurity. So talk to me about the relationship and the future for cybersecurity using Malaysia as one of the front runners for that.
I think has a robust sort of IT community because man, they have a great foundation in terms of IT manufacturing 30, 40 years ago. Because guys like Intel and those guys were in Malaysia a long, long time ago. So where I think you're seeing now is as Malaysia moves up the technology value chain, away from manufacturing but more into software, cybersecurity, those types of things. It's really that natural progression and evolution. And I understand Malaysia saying we've got a foundation of expertise, of human resources, multilingual talent that have been in this industry for many, many years, but are now moving up the value chain. And I think that's where, again, cybersecurity, other types of software development, these are things that Malaysia has great potential because they've got the education piece, multilingual population, and again, an experience with IT more broadly speaking. It's a nice mix, I think, to give them that opportunity to go for it.
Fantastic. Last question is, what questions should be asked of Malaysia? What questions and focus should we be asking? Should we be writing policy based on your research and based on your commitment to?
I think the big question for Malaysia going forward is this. Malaysia's had a great history of economic growth and development over the last 4 decades. And they've had a very sort of a Malaysia approach to it, which I give them a lot of credit for. In other words, they've said, we're going to figure out what we think is the best way to develop our society, develop our companies, develop our human resources. I think what the big question for Malaysia is going forward is what they've done over the last 30 years or so, the approaches, are not necessarily going to be as successful for the next 30 years because the global environment has continued to change. So the real challenge for Malaysia now is how will it evolve the Malaysian approach so that it really reflects what are the changes in the global economy now that weren't around 30 years ago when Malaysia was just sort of getting started in IT and many other fields that they're doing. That's why I think the stuff they're doing now in terms of aviation, biotechnology, IT services, these are the type of things where this is the future. But in order to get there, what kinds of things do you have to do? What are the policies you have to do differently? What are the types of different investments you need to make in human resources, infrastructure to get there? The potential's there, but you got to make sure you make those investments to maybe address the things that could hold you back from achieving that potential. I think that's the question for Malaysia, to figure those pieces out.